Hello, hello. I am so happy you are here today because I have the most amazing guest. Mike Capuzzi is here with us. And Mike is an expert on creating short, helpful business books. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I said in the material that I sent out before this workshop that I wanted you to know about Mike's teachings because writing full length business books, and nobody talks about this, but it is super expensive, super time consuming, and it can actually be kind of a bad business move if you're not strategic
Mm.
about it. So that's why I have Mike here because Mike's going to show us a better way. Mike is an author. Mike Capuzzi is an author. He's a nonfiction book coach and a short book publisher for business owners, entrepreneurs, and CEOs who are looking to leverage the power of being a short, helpful book author. So that is what we're going to get into. And since 1998, Mike has been helping thousands of business owners to market their business smarter. And his business is called Bite Sized Books. It's a book publishing company, and it's founded on this formula that he developed for creating short, helpful books, which he calls shooks because they shake you up. And they are for business owners, entrepreneurs, and corporate leaders. And I want to introduce him to you because I know that a lot of people in my audience are interested in writing a book. And so I want to show you a different way to do it. Mike is the expert on this. So, Mike, let's start out. The first question I really want to ask you is that you published a book in 2007 called Dream Inc. And I want to know, I feel like so much has probably changed since you published that book. It was more a traditionally published book. And I want to know, like, how have things changed? Tell us about that whole process.
Yeah. So first of all, Pamela, thank you for this opportunity. And I would say the biggest thing that has changed is when we did that book in 2007, we had to order 3,000 copies. Literally 3,000 copies were delivered to our office by truck because we
Gosh.
had to get a certain price point. We did self-publish it, and that has changed. It's night and day, right? Nowadays with print on demand, Amazon's obviously made things a lot easier. So I would say the biggest change is the fact that we don't need 3,000 copies anymore. Ironically, that was a compilation slash anthology style book. It featured 31 or 32 Philadelphia area business owners that we interviewed and we put it in the book. Ironically, Pamela, I'm working on I haven't done a compilation book in a couple of years, an anthology book, but we're working on three of them right now at this very moment. It's
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
So yeah, and a new
Yeah.
series that we're actually launching. So yeah, but other than that, I would say it's just really the cost and the print on demand technology has made it a lot easier.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's opened the doors for so many people. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is that having published books myself, I don't know if people realize how much is involved in really crafting a high quality, full length book. And it sounds like you've come up with this solution that sort of resolves a lot of those issues. So tell us about how you discovered the power of these short books. What happened in your life, and how did you kind of stumble on this concept?
I've gotten older. I guess that's what it is. I've gotten older and shorter attention span and less time that I want to waste. And again, I've read books since I was a little kid, voracious reader. For me to read a book from cover to cover was not a big deal. But as I've gotten older, Pamela, and most of my books nowadays are business nonfiction oriented books, and it just annoys the heck out of me when I'm reading a book and it's the same. The author's just repeating him or herself, and it's like, come on, let's just get to the point. So I just found myself really starting to appreciate what I call short, pithy content. Stuff that's to the point. And I started, creating my own content over 10 years ago to try to be more concise, more focused. I kind of have a reputation for making difficult things a little easier in the marketing world. And really just came up with this. I called them Shooks because it was my own brand. I needed something to differentiate the kind of books I was, publishing and writing. And Yeah, so they're designed to be read in about an hour to 2 hours for the average reader, about 100, 120 pages. So they're real books. They look like a real book. You can sit it on your bookshelf and see it and all that good stuff. But they're just focused, Pamela. They're tight. They tend to be on a very focused topic rather than an entire topic, if you will, just a slice of that topic. And readers appreciate them. I think in this day and age, people do appreciate focused content that they can read and get it done and get the power of the entire book.
So, and the other thing that I wanted to ask you about that I thought was so fascinating is that you really consider these books to be a piece of direct marketing.
Yeah.
And as a marketer, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so smart, because I think, well, you and I, came up in the marketing world in the age when direct marketing, you used to think about your mailbox up at the road, and that was where direct marketing happened, right? And now we have email marketing, and there are other ways to do direct marketing, but I had never heard about somebody using a book in this way as a piece of direct marketing. So I want to explore that a little bit and why these short books actually make a really great and powerful piece of direct marketing.
Oh, a lot of questions there. So don't let me forget them. Again, one of the benefits of getting older, you sort of like.
I'll remind you, don't worry.
So books as a direct marketing asset have been around in my research, Pamela, since the late 1800s. I've actually shared this in some of my shooks where I've shown ads from the late 1800s, early 1900s, where a free book was the call to action, which is obviously, what direct response marketing is all about, offering something to get people to raise their hand to request more information or to go do something, whatever. So yeah, they've been, books have been used for years and years. They still are. I can still watch, TV and see commercials for various books being offered. You see books obviously offered on Facebook, social media, the free book strategy. But what's unique about a Shook, Pamela, is they are a direct response. It's a direct response formula that we use inside the Shook. And what does that mean? It means that a lot of attention is paid to the design. You and I were talking about that earlier about the power of effective design. A lot of folks don't really think about that these days, but it's very highly legible. It's readable. I won't go into all the details, but it just makes it easier for people to read, which is physically able to read. The way we structure the content makes it easier for a reader to read through. And then the most important part of it all, Pamela, is that a Shook has embedded calls to action so that the author is not just hiding behind the book. You can never find out more, but for the segment of readers, the portion of readers that want more from that author, they have very specific pathways, an active pathway and a passive pathway for them to get more information from the author. And that makes it a direct response book.
Mike, you're anticipating my next question. It's so great. I wanted to ask you about those calls to action because, like you said, when we're talking about direct response, I mean, the term response connotes a response, right? So this is a two-way conversation. And you do talk about these direct calls to action and the passive calls to action. And I thought that was so fascinating. And I wonder if you could explain the difference between those two. And then, tell us how that shows up in the Shooks.
So I would say, even today, Pamela, a lot of nonfiction book authors who typically are writing how-to books or, a book that's designed to help somebody learn something or achieve something, a lot of them still make what I consider a huge mistake, which is they don't allow readers to get more from them. Like, you may be able to go online, you may be able to go to social media, but if I'm really, get what the author's saying, how do I get more? So we've solved that in a Shook by offering the two pathways. So the active pathway is for the small percentage of readers who, are so excited, who, want what you have to offer, want to learn more. They're just, they're in that mode, like they want more. So we give them the active pathway, which is the number one thing you want those readers to do. So for example, in my business with my Shooks, my active call to action is to schedule a strategy call with me, to get on a Zoom or a phone call, and let's discuss if we are the right publisher for your book idea. Not everybody's ready to do that. So we offer the passive way, which is just to be able to get more information from Mike, for myself, and in exchange for name and email. Now, we do that because all of our shooks are up on Amazon. When and online retailers, you don't know who's buying them when that happens. So you have to create a mechanism to try to scoop up some of those, online book buyers, so that you can get them on your email list and follow up with them. So you offer what we call this passive call to action, which is, hey, get this tip sheet, get this video series, whatever it might be. Just give us your name and email, and it allows us to follow up.
And then what does the nurturing look like with those emails that you collect from people who follow those calls to action? What is that? Is it an autoresponder? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's probably, it doesn't look as probably as good as it probably ought to. It's a long term. I think the latest one is probably like over 30 days. They're getting a number of emails, and they're really good. Like, I consternate over this stuff. They're good quality emails. I'm trying to add more value to those individuals who want it, and and then eventually they're put onto just our generic broadcast list. So they're hearing about my podcast or stuff that we're working on. So, but it's always.
I'm assuming that in those 30 days, you are continuing to give them active calls to action. Okay,
Absolutely.
cool. Yeah, that's
you're right. It's all embedded. It's like a chain of dominoes that you're just knocking down and just saying, because we both know some folks, they're fast action takers. They need one impression and they're ready to go. Other folks may need 7 or 8, 10 touch points before.
And there is sort of a peak of interest that happens in those first 30 days, right? And you want to grab that.
It's even shorter. I always say it's probably within the first 7.
I agree.
You're absolutely right.
I agree. Yeah. But keeping that going, over time is important as well. Like you said, because there are people who just feel like they need to gather information. They need more information, and eventually it will build up to the point that they're ready to move forward. So it's smart to have that. That's great. So that's the active and passive call to action. You want to use both. And that's a way to combat this issue of the person bought my book on Amazon. I have no idea who they are, and I have no way to sort of stay in touch with them, right?
I mean, the primary mechanism is to serve the reader more, right? To be able to give her more quality information. But then, yes, in return, it's a marketing strategy.
Right. Okay. Perfect. And this is, by the way, this is the kind of strategic writing and content creation that we're talking about when you're creating these. I call them efficient books in the promotion that I sent out for this live, because it just seems very efficient. If you're going to write a book, do it in a way that it's strategic, that it builds your business, it brings in leads, warm leads, and all of that. So let's assume somebody watching is looking at all of this and they're like, I'd never thought about it this way before. I want to do this, What is the pre-work that they need to do? Like, before they pick up and start writing a book, what do they need to be thinking about ahead of time?
Yeah, interesting question, in that most people, I think there's a lot of people, not most, I'd say a lot of people don't think, they're able to write a book. Maybe they're smart enough, they're English, they're just not a good enough writer, yada, yada, yada. The kind of books that we're talking about today, Pamela, that's why we put the word helpful in there. They're short and helpful, but they're quality. This is not about just slapping stuff together and calling it a book. I'm totally against that. I know a lot of folks say it doesn't matter if they read it, which I totally disagree with. You do want people to read your book. It doesn't need to be 300 pages, but you want them to read it. So we try to combat that and say, listen, if you're helping people, and most business owners, most entrepreneurs, most corporate leaders that we work with, they're helping people in some capacity, they're more than able to and ought to create a book. So the first thing is, who are you targeting? And one thing I want to, just before I forget, Pamela, I want to mention, I always say, and by the way, I'm not rallying against the traditional book. I love, I've got a book over here. It's probably 600 pages on my desk. I'm not against those books. I'm still a fan. I still read them. Oftentimes, it's a short book is a better strategy. And an even better strategy, Pamela, is rather than a 300-page book that covers a wide range of topics, write 3 100-page books that slice and dice that up, make it a better marketing strategy because now you can target 3 different readers. So I just want to make sure I got that out there. This is not, saying traditional business books are bad. It's just that shorter books tend to be better for a lot of people. So knowing your reader, who are you trying to target? And then presenting that targeted reader with what is typically called a big idea, something that sounds fresh and new. So it's not necessarily a book about email marketing, but it's about some new idea around email marketing, for example.
You are anticipating my questions again. I can't. We've got like interview ESP going here. So, yeah. Okay. So I won't interrupt you, but that is my next question. So the big idea. Do you have more you want to talk about in terms of pre-work?
No, I think that's the first thing you address is who are you targeting? Because to say everybody's my reader again breaks all sort of direct response marketing strategies.
Yeah,
it's not you want to focus,
right,
and then you have that big idea.
Okay, so let's dig into this big idea because I know when I wrote my very first book, I struggled so much with this concept of a big idea, and I actually did a podcast with a book coach, and he was coaching me through the process of getting my first book written. And we did an entire episode about the big idea, and I kept putting these ideas out and he was shooting them down, and it was very frustrating. But I did finally come up with something that I was able to build a book around. And I remember feeling like I just want to start writing, and like this is putting the brakes on. It's like this huge obstacle I seem to have to get past.
Yes.
And you don't want to do the work, right? So can you please explain why having a big idea is so important, what this is, and why we need to do this before we start writing?
So I'm laughing because I have a client call shortly after this interview where I know the guy is chomping at the bit, and I'm literally slowing him down to go through the process and think this through. So it's so funny you say that. So the big idea, if I recall correctly, it was David Ogilvy, who was a very famous ad man, copywriter back in the mid 1900s, who had a very famous quote about this concept of a big idea, basically saying that any sort of advertising or marketing should sound new and fresh so that it gets the attention of the consumer or the targeted individual that you're targeting with your ads. So, I mean, a big idea maybe in a perfect world, Pamela, it would be truly like something revolutionary and different, right? That's pretty hard these days. But what's more important in my mind is, in my opinion, is making your book's topic sound fresh, new, and different. So a short, helpful book is my attempt at doing that, right? There are a ton of books on Amazon, how to write a book. There are a ton of book coaches and hybrid publishers like we are, that will help you write and publish a book. We're the only ones doing a shook. Mm-hmm. That's, in my mind, I think that's a big idea. It's not like I didn't invent the concept of a short book. They've been around for probably hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's just we made it sound new and different. So that's really the fundamental strategy behind and it does take time. It does take effort. And I would recommend anybody listening and watching this, do that homework. It will pay off.
It is definitely time well spent, because it's kind of like this concept of, you don't want to build a house on a weak foundation. And the big idea is the foundation for everything you're going to write. You have to have that nailed down, or else you're just building on a weak foundation that doesn't excite people. It doesn't make them want to buy the book. It doesn't make them want to read it. It's not going to help you meet your business goals. I think it's super important. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a new word that you're coining. It doesn't have to be something that people have never heard. I mean, in your case, you did, but it doesn't have to be that. It can just be a fresh approach that people have not considered. And Mike, I think your thing is it's the shorter book, but it's also the strategic book. Yeah. And it's writing it in a way that is efficient for both the writer and the reader. And you're also getting them produced in a way, I mean, I've read your materials. You're helping people to get these generated pretty pretty darn quickly.
Yeah.
You know, this is not a year-long process the way a typical book is. So you're helping, if people really want to write a book, you're helping them turn around and take action on that idea pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, if a client follows our process and does what he or she is supposed to be doing, yeah, about 8 to 12 weeks, Pamela.
That's
Our
amazing.
record is 23 days, by the way, from idea to printed book, 23 days. Now, it was a huge effort. Uh,
Yeah.
our client was speaking at an event. It was like she had an idea, and
She had to have it. Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, um, if somebody wants to learn about the concept from you, if they're intrigued after watching this, you have several books that talk about this concept. So I'm wondering what is the best one for them to start with. And I know actually I have it up on screen. If you want, I can show it. You have a page where they can go and actually get some of these books. I'm just wondering about the order in which they should be reading them.
Yeah. So probably the two. There's two, and they were written at two different points in time. I wasn't as strategic at the time, realizing that I was going to write a second book on it. The first one was The Magic of Short Books. That's a very good, sort of primer for this concept. And then I wrote,
That was the first one I read.
yeah, the 100-page book was again. The 100-page book is another good example of a big idea, right? That's the name of the book. That's how we promoted it. And it was very successful when we launched it and did a lot of great things and sold thousands of copies. But those are the two, I'd say, fundamental ones, Pamela, that really, and I lay out everything. I mean, what's really amazing is how many shooks have been written that we never worked with the client, but they read one of the 100-page book or The Magic of Short Books, and they've done it. I give the exact step-by-step approach in there, so people can go do their own short, helpful book just by reading those.
It's amazing. I mean, they're short. They are quick to read. They're beautifully formatted, which I loved. As a publication designer, I just really appreciated that. And they're very thorough. I mean, you're really generous with your information. So I think you did
Well, I
an
appreciate
excellent job. I mean, you're showing your work with those books, right? You are showing the concept, demonstrating it beautifully. So.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if
Thank you.
people want to get those, and I can bring this up on screen if you want to talk about it, you have a page on your site where they can, oh, that's the wrong one. Let's see if we can get the right one. If they want to get these,
Which page do you have?
I have micahpuzzi.com/magic. I don't know if you
Yeah,
can
you got
see
the
it.
right one. Yeah,
Yeah, well, you
I don't
sent it to
see it.
me, so I
Yeah,
was ready.
good.
So I'm showing that on screen right now if you want to talk about it.
All right. So, as a gift for your viewers and listeners, I have three shooks. I mentioned The Magic of Short Books, a really good book about how to use a free book strategy in your business. It's called The Magic of Free Books, and then The Magic of Shooks. So, there's a three shook package that your readers, your listeners, your viewers can get, Pamela, if they go to mikecapuzzi.com/magic. Just name, email, and let me know you saw me or heard me on Pamela's show here, and we'll send you a link, and you can read them right online instantly. And it's a great format. It's a special format we use that you can read on your phone, on a computer, iPad, whatever. And yeah.
And is that the best place for people to go to learn more about you? Is there another
Well, that's
page?
if they want to get the free books, they can go that. So two sites, Pamela. MikeCapuzzi.com is the site I've had for years and years and years, and there's years and years and years of content there, and videos and blog posts. Bite Sized with a D, Bite Sized Books is our publishing company, and authorfactor.com is our podcast where I interview folks like yourself. You're going to be on the show in the future, where I interview nonfiction business book authors and why they decided to write a book and how it's helped them in their business. So those are the three sites.
I love it. I just want to thank you because you are saving people. I mean, you're doing really important work. You're saving people from pouring time and energy and money into building these books that no one reads. So I really appreciate what you do. You're helping people to be very strategic about it and create books that actually build their businesses. And I think it's so smart. So I want to thank you for joining me for the Online Business Expert series, Mike. And I can't wait to talk to you again on your own podcast in the future. That's going to be a great thing.
Yeah, Pamela, thank you, and thank you for doing this for your, all the folks that are watching and listening to us.
And actually, we do have a question. We have a couple questions. Can you stay for a second and we can answer questions? I just noticed them over in the chat. So we have some people watching, and James is asking, what is so strategic about publishing short books? And we may have answered this one, but why don't you sum it up again, Mike, just for anyone who's not clear about it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of answers to that question. I think what's strategic is you are going to help somebody who's looking for a specific set of information, whether it's how to do something, how to learn something, how to prevent something, whatever it might be. They're looking for that information. And if you could provide it to them with a very focused title and very focused content, and then also allow that reader to get even more from you, thereby helping the reader, but also helping you, I think that's pretty much a win-win strategy.
I feel like it's, like I said earlier, I think it's strategic for the person reading because they can consume the information very quickly.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to reach people in the business space, people are short on time, so they can get through it quickly. You solve their problem quickly. And yet you can be a lot more thorough than you can in a podcast episode or in a live video like this, or in a blog post even. You can be a lot more thorough in a book. So it's longer than all of those content types, but it's relatively quick compared to most business books. But it's also strategic for the person writing the book, because if you do have these calls to action and you are nurturing that connection with your reader, it can really build your business. I think it works on so many levels.
Well, and the other thing, if I could quickly, Pamela, is we didn't even talk about this, is that still in this day and age, books are seen as objects of value. So
absolutely,
podcasts, brochures, YouTube videos, there's value, but people are used to paying for books. People are used to, buying books on Amazon or bookstores. Right off the bat, it changes the sort of the game, if you will. So that in and of itself, I mean, you're not going to find too many people who've written a quality book, saying, "Wow, I wish I never did that."
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And there's something about this digital world that we live in, and then having this tangible object that you have created as a product of your own brain. It's really impressive. And I think it's always going to be impressive to be able to say you're an author. I love it. Yeah. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you for fitting in that question. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you again in the future, Mike. Thanks again.
Thanks, Pamela.
Take care.